Good day. This is Calvin, Professor C here. So today we are going to talk about the stress test and how it affects us as a mortgage agent. Now, stress test, in case you do not know what it is a rules that apply to us since 2018. It is a rules that arbitrarily implement so that when you qualify for the client, you need to qualify them based on the actual rate plus 2% or the benchmark rate, which is an arbitrary rate set by the Bank of Canada. So at the moment it's 5.25. So let me give you an example. So let's say that your client is getting 3% as an interest rate. If you're going to give them 3%, plus 2 is 5. Benchmark rate is 5.25. You use the higher rate to qualify them. So you need to actually use the 5.25 to qualify them, even though they are actually paying 3%. So in order to know what's going on, we need to know a little bit about the history of the interest rate. Let's look at it now. So here it is, just focus on the first column. You can see that interest rate is, since year 2000, it is like 7 point something, 6 point something, 5 point something, 4 point something. Then in 2006, it goes back to 6 point something, 7 point something, 6.95 on 2008. And all of a sudden, it dropped to what? 3.8. And in case you do not know what happened in 2008, it is the US subprime mortgage burst. Okay, so the whole world is in economic recession, the economic is bad and everything. So it dropped from 6.95 to 3.8. And then what happened? It continued to be in the 3 point something range, like 3.14, and even dropped to 2.89 in 2015. So historically speaking, it is low relative to the average of a Canadian rate. So it has been there like low rate for almost 10 years, 2008 to 2018. And the Bank of Canada is saying that, okay, so in the last 10 years, people are qualifying using the actual rate. And they have been enjoying the historical low rate. And they fear that, okay, what if the interest rate just go back to the average, like 6 or 7%? Can these people actually afford to pay them? And the answer might be no, right? Because they have been qualifying under the historical low interest rate. If interest rate actually go back to normal, the government is thinking that they may not be able to pay the mortgage. So what happened is they say, okay, let me start a new rules called stress test. So now instead of the actual rate, I think that we need to have them qualifying based on the actual rate plus 2 or some arbitrary rate that I set up, which is 5.25 at the moment. And in that case, if people actually can qualify for the mortgage under the more restricted rules, then at least when the interest rate go back to normal, they will still be able to pay. Now the rules has not changed since then. But what has changed? So what has changed since then if the rules has not changed? What has changed is the actual interest rate. Everybody knows that in year 2022, interest rate has skyrocketed. Right now, the actual rate that you are going to get from a bank is more like 5%. So the rules has not changed. You still have to qualify it based on 7%. Like benchmark is still 5.25, but we use whichever is higher. So client has to qualify based on 7%, which is ridiculously high. It is even higher than the average, over the last 20, 30 years. So what's going on? What I think the government should think of is to get rid of the stress test rules, because the whole purpose of that is, to see if people can pay that if the interest rate goes back to normal. And I think interest rate is now, in the range of the normal interest rate. So why do you need the stress tests? If you get rid of stress test rules, more Canadians can qualify for a mortgage, whereas right now, a lot of them cannot. And it does not actually help the economy recover. We are under the interest rate, very high interest rate, historical inflation rate, right? So if you want to help the economy a little bit, I think removing the stress test is one of the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, the economy may crash, and not only we go into recession, which we are already in, but a depression or even worse, right? So I think, if any government economist is watching, maybe we can consider doing that. Obviously, I'm not expert on it, but I think, a housing market is very important to the Canadian economy, and we should help them a little bit. Okay, so that's just my 2 cents, and also give you some perspective on the stress test and why I think it is obsolete for now. And hopefully that gives you some information. And like the content of this channel, feel free to subscribe. You can comment on it. I will usually respond. You can go buy my book on Amazon, as you can see on the bottom right hand side, right? And I will see you next month.